The forbidden patient. The syringe trembled in Molina Frost's gloved hand as amber eyes watched her with weary intelligence. After 20 rotations as a frontline medic, she had never imagined her hands would be pressed against scales instead of skin. The Pythian Drake, smaller than the behemoths of legend but no less magnificent, lay on her makeshift examination table. Its cream-colored scales rose and fell with each labored breath. Behind her, through the transparent polymer of the medical tent, distant explosions painted the sky in violent bursts of orange and blue. "I know you don't trust me," she whispered, the antiseptic smell mixing with the Drake's unique scent, something between ozone and warm cinnamon. "But that barb in your shoulder has to come out before the toxin spreads." The Drake made a sound somewhere between a hiss and a chirp, its razor-lined mouth slightly open. Its wings, beautiful bat-like structures with delicate amber veining, twitched with each explosion outside. The left wing bore a jagged tear that would ground the creature for weeks, even with proper treatment. Molina adjusted her cap, its starched fabric stiff against her dark hair, kept in a practical bun during operations. Her uniform, once pristine white with teal piping, was now stained with human blood, alien ichor, and the pale pinkish fluid that apparently served as dragon blood. "It's not getting any safer out there," she muttered as her unit's emergency radio crackled. "Frost, what's your position?" "Evacuation ships departing in 9 minutes." Commander Elias's voice was almost drowned out by weapons fire. She thumbed the comm attached to her collar. "I've got a patient, sir. Pythian Drake, wounded but stable. Requesting escort to bring it in." A pause. "Negative. Drake units are lost causes. Enemies cutting them down too fast. Save the bipeds, abandon the rest. Orders from Central." The Drake's eye widened almost imperceptibly, and Molina wondered if it understood human speech. Many claimed the Pythians were as intelligent as people, though the xenobiologists hadn't reached consensus. "With respect, sir, this one's salvageable. The Coalition can't afford to lose another Drake. I'm bringing it in." She switched off her comm before the commander could respond. "Against regulations, absolutely, but there'd be time for reprimands later, if they survived." The creature made that strange chirping sound again, softer this time. Was it gratitude? Pain? Impossible to tell. "I'm going to remove this barb now," she explained, gesturing to the metallic spine embedded in the Drake's shoulder joint. "Then administer antibiotics and synthetic plasma. You'll feel a pinch, then hopefully some relief." She worked methodically, the way she'd been trained at the Interstellar Medical Academy. The way that had kept 313 soldiers alive under her care in the past 7 months of this miserable war with the Riftborn. But Drakes were different. Their biology was a hybrid of reptilian resilience and avian delicacy, further complicated by genetic modifications the Coalition had introduced generations ago. As she prepared to extract the barb, the Drake suddenly jerked, wings flaring defensively. The movement sent a tray of instruments clattering to the ground and nearly knocked Molina off her feet. "Hey! I'm trying to help you," she snapped, fatigue momentarily overcoming her bedside manner. The Drake's nostrils flared and it made a low rumbling sound that vibrated the examination table. It took Molina a moment to realize the creature wasn't threatening her, it was trying to warn her. She turned just as the tent's entrance flap was ripped open. "Well, what we've got here?" Coalition medic playing with their fancy pet. The Riftborn mercenary filled the entrance, his exosuit humming with power, weapon raised. His face was obscured by a tactical helmet, but his voice carried the distinctive electronic distortion of their translation modules. Molina positioned herself between the intruder and the Drake, acutely aware of how ridiculous it must look, a 5 feet 4 inches human in a blood-stained medical uniform protecting a creature that could theoretically incinerate both of them. "This is a medical facility," she said firmly. "Protected under the Orion Conventions." The mercenary laughed, the sound unnervingly melodic through his translator. "Your coalition started bombing medical facilities on Proxima, 3 last month. Conventions are dead. Like you'll be. He raised his weapon higher. Several things happened in rapid succession. The Drake lunged forward with unexpected speed, Molina dropped to the ground, the mercenary fired, and then, most surprisingly, nothing happened to either Molina or the Drake. Instead, the energy blast had somehow reflected off the surgical lamp and hit the mercenary square in the chest, dropping him instantly. Molina scrambled to her feet, wide-eyed. How did you? The Drake made a dismissive snort, then winced visibly as the exertion aggravated its injuries. Right. Questions later. Let's get that barb out before more of his friends arrive. First contact. Working quickly, Molina extracted the poisoned barb from the Drake's shoulder, applied a synthetic skin patch, and prepared a specialized injection of antibiotics mixed with a cellular regeneration compound. Technically still in the experimental phase, but this was hardly the time for paperwork. This might sting, she warned, then administered the injection at the base of the Drake's neck where the scales were smallest. The creature didn't flinch, its amber eyes fixed on her with an intensity that made Molina slightly uncomfortable. There was too much awareness there, too much personhood. "I'm Molina, by the way," she said, feeling slightly foolish for introducing herself to what most of her colleagues considered little more than a bioweapon. "Though most people just call me Frost." The Drake blinked slowly, then deliberately nodded its head. "Can you understand me?" Molina asked, heart suddenly racing. Another deliberate nod. "Can you speak? Telepathy? Right?" She gestured vaguely at the data pad on her workstation. The Drake made a negative motion, then pointed with one talon toward the dead mercenary's helmet. "You want his helmet? The translator?" An affirmative head movement. Molina hesitated only briefly before retrieving the helmet. The mercenary wasn't dead after all, just unconscious from the stun blast. She secured him with medical restraints before removing his helmet and translation module. "I'm not sure this will work with draconic vocalizations," she said, fiddling with the settings on the small device. The Drake made an impatient noise and took the device delicately between two talons, adjusting something Molina couldn't see before placing it near its throat. "It will work," came a halting, synthesized voice, pitched oddly but undeniably forming words. "Need calibration." Molina sat down abruptly on her medical stool. "You can talk. You're actually talking." Obvious observation, the Drake replied, the translation becoming smoother as it continued. "All Pythians communicate. Your species never bothered with proper translation technology for us. More convenient to pretend we're just clever animals." I didn't know," Molina said honestly. "None of us did. Some knew. High Command. Scientists." The Drake adjusted the device again. "I am Tarn, Squadron Leader, 3rd Flight Division. You have military ranks. We have everything you have. Culture, art, history, family." Tarn's eyes narrowed. "Including concepts like cannon fodder and acceptable losses." The accusation stung because Molina knew it was true. The coalition had been deploying the Pythian Drakes at the front lines of every major battle, sustaining heavy losses but considering it worthwhile because each Drake was worth a dozen fighter ships in combat effectiveness. "I'm sorry," she said simply. Tarn seemed surprised by her apology. "You are different. You disobeyed orders to save me. It's my job to save lives. Any lives. Admirable. Naive, but admirable." Tarn shifted, testing his injured wing cautiously. "We need to move. More mercenaries will come." "The evac ships," Molina began, then stopped as distant explosions grew louder, followed by the distinctive whine of coalition ships breaking atmosphere. "Are already gone," she finished, feeling her stomach drop. "They left without you," Tarn observed. "They left without us," Molina corrected, already gathering essential supplies into her medical pack. Commander Elias might be a rule follower, but he wouldn't leave without confirmation she was dead. The ground shook violently, and through the tense transparent sections, she could see coalition ships disappearing into the cloud cover, pursued by rift-borne interceptors. Several ships took direct hits, debris raining down across the battlefield. "They're really leaving," she whispered, the reality of her situation sinking in. "We need to move," Tarn repeated more urgently. "I can still fly." "Not well, but enough." "Fly? With that wing?" "Absolutely not. The membrane needs at least 3 days to properly heal, even with the regeneration compounds." Tarn fixed her with a stare that needed no translation. "Would you prefer to stay and explain medical ethics to the Rift-born when they sweep the camp?" The sound of approaching vehicles made the decision for her. "Point taken. Let's go." Getting a 500-pound Drake out of a medical tent unseen presented several logistical challenges, not least of which was Tarn's insistence on taking the unconscious mercenary with them. "We need information," the Drake explained when Molina questioned this. "And leverage." They made it to the edge of the now abandoned coalition camp, keeping to the shadows of demolished structures and equipment. The planet's twin moons cast enough light to navigate by, but also enough to be spotted if they weren't careful. "Where exactly are we going?" Molina whispered as they paused behind the remains of a transport vehicle. "There's a Pythian outpost 7 kilometers east," Tarn replied. "Hidden from both coalition and rift-born. Our fallback position when we realized how expendable we were to your commanders." Molina wanted to defend her people, to insist there must be some misunderstanding, but the evidence was rather compelling. She was currently stranded on a battlefield because she tried to save an asset deemed not worth the trouble. "Can you make 7 kilometers with that wing?" "Not carrying both of you," Tarn admitted, nodding toward their unconscious prisoner. "Both of, oh no, 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 no. I'm not riding a dragon. Flight to safety." "That's not, Medic Frost," Tarn interrupted, "are you familiar with Pythian anatomical structure? Specifically, the placement of our thermal regulation vents?" What? "No, not in detail." "Then allow me to educate you. We expel excess heat through specialized vents along our spinal ridge in flight. This creates a superheated airstream directly above us. If you're not properly seated in the anterior neck position, you will, to use your human vernacular, fry like an egg." Molina stared at the Drake. "Are you making that up to ensure I don't damage your wing by sitting on it?" The translator couldn't quite capture Tarn's expression, but Molina would have sworn it was a smirk. "I suppose you'll never know for certain, will you?" A series of explosions from the direction of the medical tent ended the debate. Molina quickly secured the mercenary with additional restraints, attached him to Tarn's harness, which she was surprised to discover was equipped with prisoner transport fixtures, and gingerly positioned herself at the base of the Drake's neck, just ahead of the wing joints. "Hold tight to the forward harness straps," Tarn instructed, "and try not to scream. Sound carries at night." "I don't scream." Molina's dignified protest transformed into exactly what she denied as Tarn launched into the air with surprising speed, powerful wings driving them upward despite the injury. The sensation was nothing like shuttle flights or even emergency drop ships. This was raw, primal flight, muscles and sinew working beneath her, wind whipping past, the ground falling away with alarming rapidity. "You okay up there?" Tarn asked, voice barely audible over the wind. "Fine," Molina managed, though her white-knuckled grip on the harness suggested otherwise. "Just wasn't expecting the vertical takeoff. Pythian specialty. Useful for avoiding ground fire." They soared above the battlefield, and Molina had a perfect, terrible view of the devastation. The coalition camp was now largely in flames, with rift-borne forces methodically sweeping through it. Further out, she could see the main battlefield, a wasteland of craters and burning vehicles stretching for kilometers. "It looks like hell," she whispered. "It is hell," Tarn replied simply. "One your people and mine created together, along with the rift-born." They flew in silence for several minutes, Tarn occasionally adjusting course to avoid what he described as thermal signatures, presumably rift-borne scanners. Their prisoner remained unconscious, dangling somewhat undignifiedly from the harness attachments. "Why are you helping me?" Molina finally asked. "You could have left me behind. Or killed me, for that matter." Tarn was quiet for so long that Molina thought perhaps the translator hadn't picked up her question. When he finally answered, his synthesized voice was softer. "You helped me when your own commander ordered you not to. That is not something I have experienced from humans before." "Not all humans are the same," Molina said, feeling defensive of her species despite everything. "Nor are all Pythians. Or even all Rift-born, though I admit I find that harder to believe." There was a hint of what might have been humor in the translation. "Besides, you're a medic. My people respect healers above all other professions. Even our warriors seek permission from our healers before battle." "Really? That's actually quite enlightened. We had 3,000 years of civilization before your people discovered atomic energy," Tarn replied dryly. "We've had time to work through some ethical questions." Before Molina could respond, something streaked past them, a tracer round glowing ominously in the darkness. "We've been spotted," Tarn said, voice tightening. "Hold on." The Drake banked sharply right, then dove toward a ravine that Molina hadn't even noticed in the darkness. Her stomach lurched violently as they plummeted, the ground rushing up at a speed that seemed impossible to survive. "Pull up," she screamed, forgetting Tarn's earlier warning about sound carrying. "Not yet," the Drake replied with infuriating calm. "They're using thermal tracking. Need to break the lock." More tracers zipped past them, closer this time. Molina squeezed her eyes shut, certain they were about to crash. She felt Tarn's muscles bunch beneath her, and then they were suddenly soaring upward again, having pulled out of the dive mere meters from the ground. "That should confuse their targeting systems momentarily," Tarn said, sounding entirely too pleased with himself. "But they'll adjust. We need cover." He angled toward a dense forest area ahead, flying dangerously low, so low that Molina could have reached down and touched the tops of the alien vegetation. As they passed, the plants released clouds of luminescent spores, creating a glittering trail behind them. "Great, now we're leaving a literal glowing path for them to follow," Molina muttered. "Actually, the spores will disrupt their scanners," Tarn replied. "Local adaptation. These plants evolved to release particles that interfere with the natural sonar of predatory species on this world. And that works on advanced military technology. You'd be surprised how often advanced military technology mimics natural systems. Your coalition's quantum positioning system is remarkably similar to how native avians navigate here." A massive explosion behind them lit up the night sky, and Molina glanced back to see a rift-borne skimmer crash into the ravine they just navigated. "Did you know that would happen?" she asked, incredulous. "Let's say I had a reasonable hypothesis," Tarn replied, and this time the translator definitely conveyed smugness. They continued their flight for another 20 minutes, eventually reaching what appeared to be an unremarkable section of dense forest. Tarn circled twice before descending into a small clearing barely large enough to accommodate his wingspan. "We walk from here," he said as Molina gratefully slid off his back onto solid ground. "The outpost has defenses against aerial detection." The hidden sanctuary. Molina helped unharness their still unconscious prisoner while Tarn stretched his injured wing carefully. In the moonlight, she could see the synthetic skin Patch was holding, but the membrane looked inflamed around the edges. "That wing needs proper treatment," she said, professional instincts taking over. "The quick patch I did was just for stabilization. Our healers will see to it," Tarn assured her, "though your technique was surprisingly effective given your limited knowledge of our physiology." "I've had practice improvising," Molina said, shouldering her medical pack while Tarn managed their prisoner. "Half of battlefield medicine is educated guesswork." "A concerning admission from someone who was just injecting substances into my bloodstream," Tarn observed, but the translator conveyed no real alarm. They made their way through the dense vegetation, Tarn navigating with confidence despite the near darkness. Molina stumbled frequently, her standard-issue medical boots not designed for hiking through alien forests. "How much further?" she asked after what felt like her 100th stumble. "We're already here," Tarn replied, stopping in front of what appeared to be a solid rock face covered in vines. Molina looked around in confusion. "I don't see anything that looks remotely like an outpost." Tarn made a complex trilling sound that the translator didn't attempt to interpret. The rock face shimmered briefly and then simply wasn't there anymore, revealing a wide tunnel leading into the hillside. "Holographic concealment," Tarn explained unnecessarily as Molina's jaw dropped, "combined with some technology your scientists would probably classify as impossible." "That's not in any coalition briefing about Pythian capabilities," Molina said faintly. "Obviously. We're not completely without guile, Medic Frost." They entered the tunnel, which was illuminated by strips of soft blue light embedded in the walls. The passage was tall enough to accommodate Tarn's full height and wide enough for 3 drakes to walk abreast, clearly designed with their anatomy in mind. After approximately 50 meters, it opened into a much larger cavern that took Molina's breath away. The space was enormous, at least 100 meters across and nearly as high. Natural rock formations had been seamlessly integrated with constructed elements to create a multi-level settlement. Luminescent plants grew from specialized niches, providing soft ambient lighting. Flowing water had been channeled into decorative pools and practical irrigation systems. And everywhere, there were Pythian Drakes. At least 30 that Molina could see at first glance, of varying sizes and coloration. All activity in the cavern ceased as they entered. Dozens of amber eyes turned to stare at the human in their midst. "You brought a human here." The voice came from a drake larger than Tarn, scales a deep cobalt blue with silver markings along the wing edges. The translator rendered the voice as female, with tones of authority. "She saved my life, Elder Keseth," Tarn replied, lowering his head slightly in deference. "And she was abandoned by her own people for doing so." The blue drake, Keseth, approached slowly, her gaze fixed on Molina with an intensity that made the human want to shrink back. Instead, she straightened her posture and met those ancient eyes directly. "I'm Molina Frost, medical officer with the Coalition Expeditionary Force," she said, trying to keep her voice steady. "I mean no harm to your people. I'm just trying to survive, same as everyone." Keseth circled her slowly, examining her from all angles. "You wear the uniform of those who have used us as weapons and shields," the elder Drake observed, "yet Tarn says you risked yourself to save him. Curious. I'm a medic. I treat the wounded regardless of species or faction. A noble sentiment, rarely practiced in wartime." Keseth completed her circle and faced Molina directly. "And who is this?" She gestured to the mercenary, who was beginning to show signs of regaining consciousness. "Rift-born mercenary," Tarn explained. "I thought he might have useful intelligence." Keseth made a sound that the translator rendered as a skeptical snort. "Take him to the lower chambers for questioning." 2 smaller drakes immediately came forward to take charge of the prisoner, carrying him deeper into the cavern. "As for you, human medic," Keseth continued, "you are in a complicated position. You have earned Tarn's gratitude, which carries weight among our kind. But you are still Coalition, and the Coalition has proven itself untrustworthy." "I understand," Molina said. "I can leave once it's safe. Find my way to a neutral outpost." "There are no neutral outposts left on this world," Keseth said bluntly. "The war has consumed everything. And you would not survive the journey alone, in any case." "Then what do you propose?" Molina asked, a hint of challenge in her voice. Keseth's expression was unreadable to human eyes, but the translator conveyed amusement in her next words. "For now, you will be our guest. Tarn's wing requires proper treatment, which you began. You will assist our healers in completing it. In exchange, we will provide sanctuary until a more permanent arrangement can be determined." It wasn't exactly a choice, but it was better than being a prisoner, or dead. "Thank you," Molina said sincerely. "Do not thank me yet, human. Your presence here complicates matters at a time when complications are distinctly unwelcome. Keseth turned to Tarn. Take her to the healing chambers, then report to me for debriefing. As Keseth moved away, Molina noticed the blue drake was missing a portion of her right wing, an old injury, long healed but clearly limiting. Don't stare at her wing, Tarn murmured, guiding Molina toward a side passage. It's considered impolite among our kind. That injury is from the early days of the Coalition Alliance, when your people were still testing our combat capabilities, Tarn said flatly. She was deemed an acceptable experimental casualty during weapons calibration exercises. Molina felt sick. Testing? You mean she was? Before we understood what the Alliance truly meant for our people, Tarn finished. I'm sorry, Molina said, knowing the words were wholly inadequate. You didn't fire the weapon, Tarn replied, leading her down a curving passage, though you benefit from a system built on such decisions. They entered a smaller cavern filled with what Molina recognized as medical equipment, some familiar, some completely alien in design. 3 Pythians were present, all wearing intricate harnesses that seemed to serve as both tool belts and status indicators. Healers, Tarn explained. This is Medic Frost. She treated my wing under battlefield conditions and has agreed to assist you. The largest of the 3, a drake with russet scales and elaborate gold markings on the harness, approached. I am Neth, lead healer. Show me your work, Coalition Medic. New alliances. For the next hour, Molina worked alongside the Pythian healers, explaining her emergency treatment of Tarn's wing and learning their more advanced techniques. Despite initial skepticism, the healers seemed impressed by her improvisation and willingness to learn. The translation devices facilitated technical discussion, though Molina suspected much nuance was lost. Your synthetic skin compound is crude but effective, Neth acknowledged as they completed a more permanent repair to Tarn's wing membrane. The regeneration stimulant you administered was more sophisticated than I would have expected from Coalition field medicine. It's experimental, Molina admitted. Not officially approved for combat use yet. Yet you had it in your medical kit, the healer observed shrewdly. Molina hesitated. I sometimes acquire supplies through unofficial channels when I think they might save lives. Ah, Neth's expression conveyed understanding. You are what humans call a rule bender. Something like that. Over the following days, Molina found herself settling into an unexpected routine. She assisted the Pythian healers with their patients, mostly drakes injured in coalition, training exercises, or combat operations. In return, they taught her about their advanced medical techniques and unique physiology. The interrogation of the rift-born mercenary yielded disturbing intelligence. The enemy was planning a massive offensive against the remaining coalition strongholds, using information obtained from captured Drake communication frequencies. Worse, they had developed new weapons specifically designed to neutralize Pythian advantages in aerial combat. Your people need to know about this, Keseth told Molina during one of their evening conversations. They had taken to meeting in the cavern's upper levels, where bioluminescent gardens provided a peaceful respite from the war. How? Molina asked. The coalition left me for dead. Even if I could contact them, why would they believe intelligence from a lost cosmetic? Perhaps, Keseth said carefully, it is time for a different approach. That night, Molina was awakened by unusual activity in the cavern. Drakes were moving about with purpose, preparing equipment and supplies. She found Tarn checking his flight harness. His wing had healed remarkably well under the combined human-Pythian treatment. What's happening? She asked. We're leaving, Tarn replied. All of us. Keseth has made a decision. Leaving? Where? To find your people. The real ones, the ones who might listen to reason instead of just issuing expendability orders. Within hours, the entire outpost was mobilized. The holographic concealment was deactivated, revealing the true scope of the Pythian settlement. Dozens of drakes took to the air in formation, their departure coordinated with military precision. Molina found herself once again riding on Tarn's back, but this time as part of a magnificent aerial procession. The sight was breathtaking, wings spanning the dawn sky, scales catching the light like living jewels. They flew toward the coalition's fallback position on the continent's eastern shore, where scattered human forces were reportedly regrouping. It was a risk. The coalition might shoot first and ask questions later when faced with an approaching dragon formation. But as they crested the final mountain range, Molina saw the wisdom in Kessetha's plan. The coalition position was under siege by rift-born forces, their defensive lines barely holding. Without intervention, the human forces would be overrun within hours. "This is Coalition Medic Molina Frost," she broadcast on all emergency frequencies as the Pythian formation descended. "I'm with allied Pythian forces offering immediate assistance. Do not fire. Repeat, do not fire on the Drakes." The response was chaotic, confused voices, urgent consultations, someone shouting about impossible survival reports. But the weapons systems remained silent as 30 Pythian Drakes dove into the battle with devastating effect. What followed was unlike any engagement in the war's history. Instead of being deployed as disposable shock troops, the Drakes fought as intelligent allies, coordinating with human ground forces and providing tactical support that turned the tide decisively. When the battle ended, Molina found herself face to face with a very surprised Commander Elias. "Frost? But we confirmed your position was overrun." "I was, sir. These Drakes saved my life, and now they're offering to save yours too. But things need to change. They're not weapons, they're people. They have families, culture, military traditions older than human civilization. That's not possible. The xenobiological assessments were wrong, sir. Deliberately or not, they were wrong." Over the following weeks, everything changed. Molina served as a liaison between human and Pythian forces, helping establish genuine communication protocols and joint operational procedures. The war against the Riftborn was far from over, but now the coalition fought alongside true allies rather than expendable assets. Tarn was promoted to Joint Squadron Leader, commanding mixed human-Pythian units. Keseth became an official diplomatic advisor, her wisdom helping prevent the cultural misunderstandings that had plagued earlier cooperation attempts. And Molina? She remained what she had always been, a medic who treated the wounded regardless of species. But now she did so in a field hospital where human doctors worked alongside Pythian healers, sharing knowledge and saving lives together. Standing in that integrated medical facility, watching a human surgeon and a Drake healer collaborate on a complex procedure, Molina reflected on how a single moment of conscience had changed everything. Sometimes the greatest victories came not from following orders, but from recognizing the inherent worth of all sentient life. The war continued, but now it was fought by allies who understood that strength came not from domination, but from unity. 6 months later, as Molina watched the first class of joint human-Pythian medical students graduate from the newly established Interspecies Academy, she smiled. Among them was a young Drake named Kira, whose healing abilities combined with human medical technology had already saved dozens of lives. "Proud of your work?" Tarn asked, settling beside her on the Academy's observation deck. His wings showed no trace of the injury that had brought them together. "Proud of all our work," Molina corrected. "You Drakes taught us as much as we taught you." "Perhaps more," Tarn admitted with what she'd learned to recognize as draconic humor. "Your species has a remarkable capacity for growth, once you overcome your initial assumptions." In the distance, mixed squadrons of human fighters and Pythian Drakes practiced coordinated maneuvers against the sunset sky. The sight still filled Molina with wonder. Beings who had once been treated as disposable weapons now soared as equals, their combined strength far greater than the sum of their parts. The Rift-born war had ended 3 months ago, not through conquest but through negotiation. When faced with the unified coalition Pythian alliance, even the enemy had recognized the futility of continued conflict. Peace talks were ongoing, with Elder Keseth serving as one of the primary mediators. "Do you ever regret it?" Molina asked. Trusting a human medic who couldn't even pronounce your species' name correctly? Tarn's response came without hesitation. Never. That day taught me something I had forgotten in all those years of being treated as a weapon, that compassion exists in every species capable of choice. You simply chose to see me as worth saving. As the twin moons rose over the academy, Molina felt a deep sense of completion. The battlefield where she had first pressed her hands against scales instead of skin seemed like a lifetime ago. That frightened medic who had defied orders to save a wounded Drake had become something she never expected, a bridge between worlds. What's next for you? Tarn asked. Molina gestured toward the medical bay where the lights were still burning, healers and doctors of multiple species working side by side. Same thing as always. Taking care of those who need it. And if another war comes? Then we'll face it together, she said simply. All of us. As equals. The stars wheeled overhead, no longer witnesses to a war between species, but guardians of an alliance that would reshape the galaxy. And in the Academy's medical bay, a human woman and a Pythian Drake continued their rounds, tending to patients whose species mattered far less than their shared need for healing. In the end, Molina reflected, the most important battles were often fought not with weapons, but with the simple recognition that every life, regardless of the form it took, was precious beyond measure. The end.